Sapphires are some of the most valuable treasures in the world, but behind every sparkle, there's a great price to be paid to bring every stone to its final form with its individual beauty. Gem mining, like every form of mineral mining, creates adverse impacts on the environment. While the owners of gems may not realize it, the mining of gemstones takes a major toll on the environment and communities they come from. Ceylons, Munich is a producer of the finest and fair sapphires and gemstones from Sri Lanka. Their approach to the gem trade is to introduce transparency and traceability into each step of the value chain and establish the concept of responsible mined and fair processed gemstones for the environment and local communities. To make a long story short, fair for everyone from mine to market.
It's important to understand that our choices can have ripple effects that can change lives. That's why we are focusing on creating sustainability in both ends. Sustainability from the supplier and also the consumer. We want to do our part by ensuring transparent mining processes and ensure safety and well-being of the people and communities who are so important to this trade. We want to create the conscious consumer to that. The gem and jewelry business has sadly ignored this approach for a long time, but it's never too late to start a change.
Our mines in Sri Lanka are set up in a way to follow the standards set by the Sri Lankan authorities. But we also want to go further than that. We want to tackle challenges with practical solutions. It can't be achieved overnight, but it is something we need to work on step by step. This is how we can create a change. Lawmakers of the country get alerted to these developments, and they will be pressed to integrate more sustainable practices to the local industry.
In Sri Lanka, government regulations on the industry prohibit the use of heavy machinery to mine gemstones. Only traditional, manual methods are allowed, and this practice is how things have been done in the country for centuries.
We run this gem mining business as a joint venture with our friends Peter and Leander. Sri Lanka's regulations on things like ownership of mines and the use of heavy machinery is very strict. For example, foreigners can't have sole ownership of gem mines. And only a handful of machine mining licenses are issued each year, and that too with a lot of conditions. Furthermore, child labor is non-existent in the Sri Lankan gem and jewelry industry. These kind of regulations make sure mining happens in Sri Lanka in a socially and environmentally sustainable way.
Everything from granting mining licenses to mine evaluations are closely monitored by government authorities. National laws and stricter regulations, as well as improved supervision in the recent years, outline the scope of what can be done and what cannot. For example, mine rehabilitation is mandatory after the closure of a mine, and only a limited number of mining licenses are issued every year to ensure reserves are managed properly to last for future generations. In Sri Lanka, traditional mining practices are also socially responsible and sustainable. Mines are constructed using natural materials and follow traditional methods that have prioritized the safety of the miners. The traditional practices in Sri Lanka entitle everyone involved in the mining process to a fair portion of the profit, just like a shareholder of a company, and this has been a practice which goes back many hundreds of years. For Ceylons, Munich, social responsibility for local communities is at the core of our mission to produce sustainable and fair gemstones. Doing this is made possible with our close relationships with miners and cutters from the gem-bearing regions of Sri Lanka.
Changing what we consume and the way we consume is the key to creating long-lasting, sustainable change. We want to create an educated customer who will be the agent of creating that change. The fair trade of colored gemstones are truly possible, and our mining and cutting operations in Sri Lanka are set up to operate with sustainable and ethical, fair practices.
The mining practices in Sri Lanka as a whole aren't perfect, but I don't think anywhere in the world they are. But unlike a lot of other countries, the mining regulations in Sri Lanka are probably up to the best standards we can currently find. They're set up in a way which prioritizes the protection of communities and the environment. For example, Sri Lankan laws prohibit the export of rough stones to make sure the domestic cutting and polishing industry is secured and the local craftsmen and their livelihoods is developed.